What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Friday Night Bites. Hope you guys are enjoying the shows. Last week we touched on some stuff. Just trying to dial some stuff in and making that decision on the fly, on the water, on changing baits and staying ahead, doing the things that you should do. And that's part of this show, man. Just talking about some of my personal mistakes so that way you guys don't have to make them on the water. So welcome back to the Dubro studio. We're here at Dubro HQ and looking forward to ICAST 2024. Excited to show you guys some of the new products we got coming out, kayak related. I'm sure a lot of you guys will appreciate them. But tonight, I want to talk about getting ready for a tournament. I have a tournament coming up. So I've had a lot of things going on upstairs trying to mentally prepare and just kind of talk about some of the things I do personally to get ready and prepare for an event. So let's get this show started.
Welcome to Friday Night Bites, an after-hours paddle and fin production. No holds barred, what's hot and what's not. Latest updates and trends in the industry. Tricks, tips, and more. Weekly updates by none other than the OG himself. Now let's join the one and only podfather, Brian Schiller.
All right, guys, like I said in the intro, got a derby coming up soon here. And last year, unfortunately, I didn't get to fish this specific event. It's a neighborhood tournament, right? I know I've talked about my home body of water quite a bit on these podcasts, and I always look forward to this tournament. Well, last year, during show season, I ran into the fine folks that own McCoyd's Inn up on Mille Lacs in Minnesota, which is a world-renowned walleye fishery, but smallmouth fishery as well. So last year when this event was going on, I was up on Mille Lacs chasing bedded smallmouth, did really well. I forget how many fish over 5 pounds I caught, smallmouth bass, and the numerous 3.5 to 4+ pound fish. But the year prior, I actually took home the W. This is a boat event, so it's not something I can fish out of in the kayak. They have a live weigh-in, things like that. So the year prior, I got to fish it with my father, which is something like him and I have always talked about, right? Fishing an event, maybe cashing a check, whatever. It's always good to spend time on the water with some of your mentors, which my dad definitely was a mentor of mine when it comes to fishing. B, your folks, man. I mean, you're creating memories. And me and Pops took home the W plus big bass. I think the big bass, it was a fish I caught. It was like 5 pounds 3 ounces, 5 pounds 4 ounces. We ended up having a 23-pound bag. So this is my first time back to that event, and I want to finish as strong as I did as the last one I fished, right? So just a few things like that I've been thinking about, and it relates to kayak tournaments, boat tournaments, whatever. It's something I've always done anytime I fish any kind of competitive fishing event. Number one, map study. Granted, this is my home body of water, but I still look at the maps because we're in post spawn right now on the home body of water. Fish are staged up, getting ready to move offshore. Obviously, you're still going to have your resident fish that are still staying relatively shallow in 7 foot or less of water. But our lake is known for holding a lot of structure and moving offshore clinging to that structure throughout the summer, especially as water temperatures warm and things like that. So we've the past couple of weekends I've been out just trying to stay on top of where the fish are, trying to run into a big fish here and there, but I don't want to sore lip those fish, right? So, but it's good to catch one and know the realm of fish you're in. Has always been my theory. I know a lot of pros will go out, get bit, shake them off, things like that. I like to actually put one or two in the boat, weigh them, see what kind of weight class of school of fish are there, and then make judgments off that knowledge. But looking at maps, I can go back and look at, okay, I've fished this, I've fished this. What am I missing? What haven't I fished? Or where am I currently catching fish, and what else is like that I can go out and see if that um, structure or depth or whatever it may be is holding fish that I haven't personally gone and wet a line on yet. So first and foremost, that's it. So my home body of water, yeah, you could look it up on Navionics, things like that, and it's general depth lines, right? But we all know what you see on a computer screen or a Lake Master chip or a Garmin graph or whatever is going to be relatively different from what the bottom composition actually is. One of the things I really utilize and I really enjoy about using a Garmin graph is you can record. I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but basically you can go back and remap. Quick draw contours is what they call it. But basically you could remap the bottom off your graph as you're going over it. And I've done this over the years. Every time I go out on the water, I usually hit start record because you never know. We do have a little bit of current flowing through there. Some stuff drains into the lake, things like that. So, we've had a relatively wet spring here in northern Illinois. So the lake ultimately has been relatively high. So you can get some current movements through there, which could move around some sediments, things like that. If you're fishing rivers, obviously we all know those things change. So re-recording that bottom structure is a key thing. So anytime I visit a new body of water, right, I'm always looking at those maps that you can find online on your graphs, things like that, to kind of get a general idea. And once I get there, every time I go out on the water, I'm hitting start record because there may be a little hump or a little point or something like that that may hold fish that you obviously can't see from the surface of the water, but you can see by re-recording it on your graph. Or you go out, you find some fish that's relative to an area you did map over, and maybe that's something you want to go back and look at during your pre-fishing to see if that's holding the same kind of fish. I did that. I believe it was last week's show when I was talking about changing baits and stuff like that. I talked about that tournament on Nickajack Lake, and I always use that for reference because there was so many lessons learned in that tournament for me as a relatively newer kayak tournament angler. So I'm sorry if I bore you with that, but I think there's some valuable information to take away from that event that I learned personally that I think you guys would learn from too. In that event, during pre-fishing, I go out and I noticed that fish were clinging to certain depth breaks that were near river current in the TVA, the Tennessee River's flowing through there. They were staying relative to that current, steeper breaks, rocks, and wood. Common thing, right? So once I found fish in one of those areas, I remember I went back to my campsite that night and I'm sitting in my trailer and I got Navionics open or whatever it was. And I'm going through and just looking at the map and pinpointing all these spots that looked almost exactly like the stuff I was actually catching fish on. Go back out the next day of pre-fishing, hit those spots, and lo and behold, a majority of them held fish like that. So then it was, okay, I got all these slews of areas. I've caught fish in all of them. Didn't sore lip them. Obviously, I catch one or two, get out of there, move on to the next one. Um, that way you're not beating up a spot, because you could have a spot that'll hold 50, 60 fish, and that particular event was a 2-day event. So you don't want to beat the crap out of one spot day one and then expect it to be the same day two. You want to kind of go there, catch a few fish on day one, then go to another spot, catch a few fish, then go to another spot and catch a few fish. So after you realize that, hey, all these spots are holding fish, okay, now which spot is holding the bigger fish? Because that's the spot you want to go hit first thing of the day and hope that those big fish are biting at that particular time, which usually, obviously first thing in the morning is a good time for bigger fish. If not, it could be a spot that, hey, this doesn't produce first thing in the morning. I'm going to go hit it later in the day before the end of the tournament, because that's when those bass are biting. So be conscious of that. That's why I mention it. So you figure out where the fish are and you kind of make judgments from there. So for instance, the last time the neighborhood derby went, I had a slew of spots that I went and checked night before the tournament. And there was no off limits time other than, like, I think it was like couldn't be on the lake after 8 p.m. or something, or 9 p.m. if you were fishing the tournament the next day. So the night before, I go drop in the boat and I go start hitting these spots. And again, pulling one or two fish in, weighing them, seeing what kind of weight class there was. And I remember I go to a spot that hadn't produced any fish yet, but for me, it always produced big fish when the fish got there. So I went and hit my normal spots, and it was like a bunch of 3-pounders in this spot, 3.5s, maybe a 4 over in this spot. And then I go and check the spot that usually holds bigger fish last. I remember first cast, it was like a 4-pound, 3-ounce. And I'm like, crap, like, could use that one tomorrow. Didn't want to catch that now, but I wanted to make sure it wasn't just like one or two fish there. Very next cast, it was like a 310. So I'm like, all right, there's good weight class of fish here. So I'm going to plan it out. This is the spot that I've caught the biggest fish. It's holding bigger fish, should hold multiple fish. If you got two fish back to back like that, that's usually a good sign. I pulled up the trolling motor, got out of there, because I didn't want to see anybody, or I didn't want anybody to see me out there reeling in a few fish. So take off, get out of there. Next morning, go to the captain's meeting, and then we launch. I remember we were leaving the launch, and it was like boats are following us, and then they slowly broke off. By the time I got to my spot, we were the only one there. And I'm like, this is perfect. This is going to be great. We sat there. The derby started at 6:30 and it went till 1 or 2 o'clock. I don't remember which, but I mean, we sat there till like there was only like an hour and a half or 2 hours left in the tournament, and we wore them out. I wanted to catch every fish on that spot. This was a 1-day event. I wanted to catch every fish on that spot because I knew people saw us out there fishing, and we hadn't moved all day. I mean, we were literally spot locked in the same spot pretty much the whole day, unless we got hooked up in some brush piles or whatever it was and had to go move in, unhook, and then move back out. So pounded the crap out of it, put together a great bag. I don't think we had another upgrade after we left there. Maybe one fish we upgraded like a couple of ounces. But then we went off and we fished some of my other spots that I had watched throughout the day that I didn't really see people fishing, or maybe they fished it for a little bit, not too much. So that's the thing too, is if you're in an area and you could, physically see these other spots that you have as backups, as plan A, B, and C, that's one thing. I always try to have, obviously, my main spot, right? Where I'm definitely planning on going. But it's always good to have at least 3 other backup spots, because you never know. Another boat could have followed us right to the spot we were going. And yeah, we could have fished over the top of each other, but obviously you're going to wear them out a lot quicker. So you got to move on to another spot. Or you show up there and there isn't a fish to be found, or it's a later afternoon bite, like I talked about earlier, and you got to go hit some other spots. So at least you're putting some fish on the board or in the box. So that way, if you're going to that afternoon spot, all you're doing is upgrade, right? Because the worst thing ever is just to basically sit around and just lounge around till you go to fish that spot. Well, if those fish aren't producing by the time you get there, you're kind of screwed. So you got to fish, right? Obviously. So it's always great to have backup plans. So fast forward from past to present day, I've been trying to keep a good eye on where fish are, what stage they're in, and where they're going. So let's take a quick iCast commercial break, and we'll be right back to finish up these thoughts. All right, guys, we'll see you at iCast. We're looking forward to streaming live out of the Dubrow fishing booth. It'll be myself, John Rapp from the Rusty Hook, Randy Newton from the Final Cast, and Matt Gibson from the Bass Fishing for Noob show. We'll be bringing you shows live from iCast with all the various vendors in the area, some of the names walking around the arena there, and things like that. So be on the lookout. iCast 2024. If there's something that you know of that's coming out or you want to see as we draw closer to the show, feel free to reach out to us. We'll try to do everything we can to get those folks on the podcast, get an interview with them, and get you an exclusive first look at some of that stuff, and maybe dive into the background of it, things like that. So to wrap it up, guys, like, I've been trying to keep tabs on the fish. Like I said, right now they're post spawn. They're definitely feeding up. This past Sunday, I was out on the water with one of the guys from Rocktown Adventures, and we caught some fish. We definitely caught some smaller fish up in the shallower water, but as we started to move out a little deeper, we were running into some bigger fish. I think big fish of the day was like 310, right around 4 pounds. So I've been trying to keep tabs on what stage they're in, where they're moving, things like that, because we're in that funky stage up here in the north where it's like, okay, I'm going to go fish a body of water tomorrow morning, and those fish are just getting on beds. Granted, it's a lake that's 100 times bigger than my own body of water and 10 times deeper and things like that. So, in the north, depending on the body of water you're on, fish are in different stages. We're not in the full-on summer stage up here. We did have like an extended cold period through the spring. I wouldn't say it was winter. It was just relatively cold, 50s, low 60s, things like that. It's just recently started warming up. So on the home body of water, they're definitely spawned out. I'm keeping tabs where they're at. They're starting to move a little bit offshore, things like that. So as we draw closer, obviously this weekend I'm going to go out. I'm going to see what's going on out there. Friday next week, obviously I'll be on the water, just kind of spot checking, and then I'm just going to leave it be. And then come Saturday morning, it's game time. And by then I'll have formulated a plan, hopefully, of attack and just following through with it. So I mean, it's just a few of the things that I do, like map study, trying to keep tabs on fish. But once you find fish, try to find other things that are relative to that area that are holding fish and searching on the map. I think a lot of times folks, especially in the kayak game, right? Kayak and boats, obviously a little bit different. If you got a spot in a boat, well, if that's not producing, you could run however many miles to the next spot. In a kayak, we're kind of limited because running for us is going back to the ramp, loading the kayak in the truck or on the trailer, and then driving and then relaunching and all that stuff. So it's a lot more chaos. I've done it in the middle of a tournament. I've gone and beat up a spot, not catching any more fish. It's time to move. And I didn't have anything close to that area. So my next backup spot was literally 35, 40 minutes up the road. So I loaded up, drove up there. Yes, it's wasting valuable tournament time, but you never know. To follow that all up, though, is don't give up. Like fish all the way till the end. I've had times where I've had a rough day on the water. We've all been there. But you get through, event's almost over, or maybe just your trip out on the water is almost over, and then all of a sudden you stumble into some fish, and all it takes is 5 good ones in a tournament, and that could be all the difference in the world. Look at how many kayak events the statistics have changed literally from fish that were caught in the last hour. I mean, how many times have we seen it, guys and gals? Like, it happens all the time. And the guys and gals that just stay consistent, stay out there and just keep grinding it to the last possible second, those are the folks that are usually ending up on the podium and winning it all. So don't take your foot off the gas. You never know what could happen. Like I was talking about earlier, right? You may have an area that may not start producing until the afternoon. It may not start producing until the last 20 minutes of your tournament day, but you're not going to blow off the whole rest of the day. You're going to go out, fish hard, and keep fishing hard till you run into those fish and find them. You may not run into them, but again, how many times has an event been won in that last hour? So many, I can't even count. In all my years of doing this podcast and reporting on like major kayak tournaments, small kayak tournaments, things like that, I don't know how many guys I've talked to on the water that they've literally won the event in the last 10 minutes, 5 minutes, or those buzzer beater fish where I got it on the board and snapped the picture. I had 5 seconds left. You know, like we've all heard those stories. We've all know those guys that have done that. So it's just staying at it. Don't give up. Keep going at it. So that's the best advice I could do for you guys. But I just thought it was relative, right? Like map study is such a huge thing that isn't talked about a ton. If you guys would like to hear kind of like some of the key spots I look for on a map, I'd love to do a show about it. Maybe that's what we'll do next week. But I just wanted to kind of do an overview because I'm getting all amped up for this event, and I'm looking forward to getting out there and just, I mean, my neighborhood's full of great anglers, and I love just the camaraderie of the event overall. And I look forward to that, if nothing else. I mean, yeah, the W is great, but obviously I get to spend all day on the water with my old man, and I get to fish a fun event for a little bit of cash. If we win some, great. If not, hell, man, it was a great experience, learning experience. You always got to take something away from every event, no matter if you win or you lose, right? You're always learning and evolving as an angler. So just make mental notes as you move on. So I look forward to letting you guys know how the event turns out after next week. But Yeah, I know we got some events coming up here in the kayak realm. Obviously Hobie's in New York, I believe it is. And then I forget where Bass is going next. All Americans got an event coming up. So all you guys competing out there, good luck to you all. Be safe. I saw a video clip today of a gentleman. I think he's at that New York event for Hobie, and his boat and his post said, when the wind kicks up, don't mess around, get back to shore. And it was video clips of his boat and his gear literally sinking. Like in the one video clip, his graph was floating away from him. Lost all his rods, reels, tackle. His boat basically sunk because it had filled with water, and he was basically stranded on somebody's dock, I guess. So that's no joke, man. And obviously I'm in northern Illinois here. We have Lake Michigan right up the road. I know a lot of guys that go out there and salmon fish and things like that. Like, make sure you're checking that wind, guys. Like this past Sunday when I was out, the wind was howling out of the northwest, like 20, 25 miles an hour. Had white caps on the lake, like things like that. And that was on a small body of water. So, especially guys, I'm not sure. I don't remember the specific body of water that the New York event's on. I believe it's Cayuga Lake, but that's a big body of water. If you're a mile, 2 miles offshore, it may not seem that far when you're out there, but when you're battling wind and waves and things like that, that's quite a distance. So be cognizant, guys, gals. Everybody wants to get home safe to their families. Be sure you're watching the weather, the wind, things like that. It's no joke. So um super sorry to see that gentleman lost his gear, and I'm sure some anglers will pull together and get that guy on the water for the tournament this weekend. But if you ever run into somebody at an event like that, man, I've had that incident happen before. I was at an event helping out on the media side of things and judging fish and wrangling anglers in as they came in for check-in, things like that. And a gentleman got ran over by a boat and lost a bunch of gear. And I was like, dude, this is a championship. It's a 2-day event. You just told me you had your best day on the water. Yes, you lost your phone with all your photos and everything on it, but don't give up, man. Don't go home. Use my boat, use my gear. Here's a GoPro to take your photos. Like, just get out there, man. Like, you could still win big bass or biggest comeback, things like that, man. So he ended up sticking it out and was super grateful that he did after it was all said and done. So if you ever run into an angler in need that has had some kind of unfortunate incident happen at an event, help them out, man. You have no idea like what that could lead to. I mean, me and that gentleman, Brock Howell is the guy's name, that got hit by the boat. We're not best friends, but really good friends. Still to this day, we talk to each other all the time and encourage each other when we're out fishing and things like that. So you never know the friends you can meet or the friendships that could form just from helping another angler out. So I appreciate you guys tuning in again this week, man. It's been a lot of fun doing these shorter form, just kind of thoughts, direct, no nonsense. Like, let's get to it. Let's talk it out and get it over with. So hope you guys are enjoying this too. All the feedback has been super positive. I appreciate you guys all tuning in and following along. It feels great to be back behind the mic. And man, we're just going to keep cranking these guys out. Again, keep the eye out for iCast. We look forward to bringing you guys shows from down there. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. If you're following on Facebook, be sure you're following the Paddle and Fin page. And if you're listening on the podcast platforms, thank you very much. We appreciate you guys tuning in. So, as always, boys and girls, tight lines, smooth paddling. Peace.